Wizards of the Coast came out today and dropped a surprise ban and restricted update announcement. As a result, Brainstorm has been suspended in the historic format. And this has caused a number of Pauper players to look to the heavens and scream, "No!
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well. We are here to talk about the surprise ban and restricted announcement that was made today. There's only one item on the list, and that item is that Brainstorm is now suspended in the historic format. Now, suspensions are a bit of a weird beast. They're almost like a pseudo-banning. Now, most of the time, when cards get suspended, that moves into a banning. But on occasion, cards are actually freed from suspension and allowed to go back into the Magic ecosystem. Now, I honestly don't know why they don't try this suspension concept with physical Magic cards as a step towards banning, but for the time being, suspensions only exist on Magic Arena, and this suspension only applies to the historic format. So obviously, direct challenges, you can still use this sort of thing, and that's about it, because it's not like it was ever standard legal. So, let's talk about Brainstorm itself. This is a card from all the way back in the day of Ice Age, and I like the original artwork, but I also find it very, very unsettling. This card is quite potent when combined with effects that care about what's on top of your deck or when combined with shuffle effects. So Brainstorm is a 1 blue instant that says draw 3 cards, then take 2 cards from your hand, put them on top of your library in any order. So it's a fairly potent card. Yes, at the end of the day, you're spending 1 card, drawing 3, and putting 2 back. So it all kind of equalizes out. However, it allows you to stack the top of your deck. So if you're playing with cards that care about what's on top of your deck, you're going to be able to go, boom, let's get the right card in the right place. And it doesn't even have to be one of the cards you just drew with Brainstorm. So if in your starting hand, you get something that you need on top of your deck for a combo maneuver, boom, Brainstorm has your back. And also, when combined with things like fetch lands, which are a great example of search effects to use to shuffle your deck, basically you can go Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, pick the worst 2 cards in your hand, put them on top of your deck, and then shuffle your deck up so those cards you don't need are now less likely to be drawn until later in the game where maybe then they'll be useful, right? So Brainstorm is a lot of power for 1 mana, and it walks that line of being almost too strong, right? A number of blue cards have been outright banned for being too powerful. Deck manipulation and card draw needs to be roughly balanced. But like I said, this card has always been somewhat unsettling to me, and that's because of the artwork on this particular card. First of all, you have the fact that Buddy's head is like cracked open and his brain is exposed. What kind of like mad lad planeswalker do you have to be to say, yo, I'm literally going to expose my brains to the elements. I'm just going to go boop and let my brain pop out. Although this is the old days of Magic the Gathering, and if you've been keeping up with the lore that I've been doing over on Fantasy Geographic, you know that planeswalkers can heal from grievous injuries. So they can just pop their brain up like a sunroof and then just go boop and close it right back up. I don't know why, but I just thought of the show Knight Rider. You guys ever watch that? David Hasselhoff and Kit? We used to watch that when I was a kid. Anyways, enough of an old man moment as I have my own Brainstorm. Let us continue to talk about what's wild about this card. So, the brain is literally exposed. There's like a storm coming from it. All the lightning that's flaring out into the air, it looks like it's coming from his head, but look at his mouth. His mouth is full of lightning, like he's literally being blasted in the head by lightning. And the flavor text adds to it. It says, I reeled from the blow, and then suddenly I knew exactly what to do. Within moments, victory was mine. What a crazy concept for a spell. I do like Brainstorm. Now, let us go over the official announcement itself where they explain themselves. Now, it says, in the banned and restricted announcement for Historic in June, we mentioned that we were keeping an eye on the high play rate and perceived dominance of blue-red decks in general, and Brainstorm in particular. So this is less than a month, or I guess roughly about a month from that announcement. As we watched, we saw an interesting pattern emerge. Though decks like Izzet Phoenix and Jeskai Control represented a metagame share that usually indicates a dominantly powerful deck, their win rates have generally been fair and healthy. For example, Izzet Phoenix was approximately 30% of the metagame in the July Strixhaven League weekend, which is a very high percentage for one deck to claim. But its win rate there was only 51.5%, far from dominating or threatening. It's basically win one, lose one, roughly. I mean, obviously the 1.5% leans it a little more towards a win, but ultimately it's close to a coin flip, right? This matches our internal data, which consistently showed Izzet Phoenix with a win rate above 52% and Jeskai Control a bit above 51% in high-level best-of-3 play. Given these lower win rates for Izzet Phoenix and Jeskai Control, and the presence of multiple other archetypes with strong records against both decks and the rest of the field, we expected to see the metagame share of these decks decline over time. Though we saw some reduction, the combined metagame share among high-level players in best-of-3 ladder play declined steadily from 17% in mid-June to 14% more recently. These two decks have remained the most played, usually by a good margin. When evaluating a format, our goals are generally to create a balanced, fun, and diverse metagame. While decks like Izzet Phoenix and Jeskai Control are not showing win rates that threaten balance, their steadily high metagame share is certainly harming deck diversity, which in turn reduces the fun of the format. I want to take a moment to address this because I think this is a really big and very salient point, and something that for me is a big sticking point, specifically when it comes to arena play. There's something about the nature of arena that condenses the number of decks that are being played, and it's not just the fact that you only have a few formats to play, standard, historic, and brawl being the main three, right? You have a situation where a lot of people on arena don't have a ton of resources to get a ton of cards. And so when somebody starts playing, they end up basically building a powerful deck, and this is just generically speaking. This isn't everybody, but this is definitely a pattern that you see with arena, where basically people will sink their wild cards and gold and everything into building a deck that can actually work. Because it doesn't matter whether you're playing in ranked or whether you're playing in the casual queue, there will always be a bunch of people who really want to win at any cost, and part of that is definitely incentivized by the fact that we have weekly and daily wins, and people only have so much time in a day. So you're going to run into people who are playing powerhouse decks just trying to crank out their wins, even in the casual environment. And because wins are so highly incentivized, new people also want to crank up the wins to get more resources. So they want a deck that can compete toe-to-toe with these more powerful decks. But once they've built that deck, they've expended the majority or all of their deck building resources, their wild cards, their gold, their gems, all of that. And if they don't have or aren't willing to put a bunch more money into the game, then they're limited and they need to stick with that deck. So if you've ever wondered why you will see the same decks over and over and over and over and over. Like, for example, right now, there are a massive amount of like white or white-black life gain decks being played on Arena. And I keep running into them constantly. So this is partially a side effect of the Arena factor. But what it really does is it creates it's really just ultimately boring. Because you keep playing against the same decks over and over, and it starts to feel monotonous. Because most constructed decks are only really made out of 10 to 12 different cards. And if you're playing 4-ofs, it's even fewer than that. If you're playing 4-ofs, you might be playing as few as 9 different cards in your deck. So you're literally only using 9 different magic cards, excluding lands. And your opponent also using 9 different cards under the same conditions leads to very boring and repetitive scenarios. So being on top of this and making changes so you don't have the same sort of stagnant gameplay is genuinely important to stop people from abandoning Arena, right? Like, basically, they're trying very hard to get you into logging into Arena every day. And they do that in multiple ways. They do that by having daily win goals. They do that by having daily deals in the store. They have a number of different ways that they try and lure you into playing every day and building it into a habit so that you habitually log in every day to earn your resources and play. The player base stays up, and even if you're not somebody who's expending money into Arena, you're there to support the people who are, so they don't have to wait longer for games and they have more people to play against. So being on top of things that harm deck diversity is a very wise choice when it comes to Arena, and overall when it comes to Magic, but with Arena specifically. So, returning to what it says here, when evaluating a format, our goals are generally to create a balanced, fun, and diverse metagame. While decks like Izzet Phoenix and Jeskai Control are not showing win rates that threaten balance, their steadily high metagame share is certainly harming deck diversity, which in turn reduces the fun of the format. While we're seeing some motion to correct this, the rate of change is too gradual to quickly address the format imbalance. To improve format diversity, Brainstorm is suspended in Historic. While our most recent actions in Historic have been bans, such as those for Time Warp and Thassa's Oracle, those were cases where we had clear and convincing data showing the cards were problematic. In this case, the data is less clear, and that is exactly where we prefer to utilize suspension. We will continue to monitor the Historic meta closely to see if it reaches a point where reintroducing Brainstorm seems safe, or if we should move fully to ban Brainstorm. So, when it comes to suspensions, how the rules for them were laid out is suspensions will never be a permanent thing. We're going to remove them, we're going to pay attention to the environment, and then we're going to make our ultimate decision. So Brainstorm will, at one point, either be moved fully into the banned category, or it will be moved into the ready to play again category. Those are the only real two options for it. In the meantime, that means that you won't be getting any wild cards for Brainstorm, and actually, thinking about it, is the only Brainstorm that's available on Arena the Strixhaven rare version? That might be part of what's making them decide to suspend it right away instead, because, I mean, I feel like they try and pull back on handing out wild cards too frequently because, let's be real, Arena does use somewhat of a mobile style, kind of try and make you feel a little bit frustrated and slow you down with your gains so that you have to pump money into it. I mean, ultimately, it's a business and they're looking to make money. But it seems like choices that they make aren't really they're not really going from the mentality of, let's just make the best experience we can, and people out of gratitude for having the best experience they can will end up putting more money into it. It seems like they actively try and select choices that are designed to make the game feel a little bit more grindy, a little bit harder, where you get just enough fun, but with certain frustration mixed in, so you will pay to have that frustration removed. And I think it's hard to argue against that point when you look back to the past, where they literally used, when Historic was first coming along, they didn't really want to support it that much. So they tried to tell us that if you wanted to buy older cards using your wild cards, you would have to spend twice as many wild cards. And the only logic they could come up to back that up for us, that they told us, was it will make the environment more fun. That's literally all they could come up with, because they weren't really willing to say, well, what we're doing here is we're trying to pull you away from Historic. We're trying to make it more expensive. There are some people who theorize that they did the 2-for-1 so that people would accept a 1-for-1 instead of going, wait, these are all the cards we can't play in Standard. We should get 2 copies for a wild card. So there is an argument to be made that way. But what I'm trying to say is that Wizards of the Coast does walk that kind of line where I feel like a card being rare makes them less likely to immediately ban it unless they absolutely have to, because they don't want to hand out the wild cards. But ultimately, when I look at this choice, I do have to say that it does feel like banning Brainstorm at this moment, not banning, sorry, I should say, suspending Brainstorm, instead of outright banning it, is actually properly the right course of action in my view. I think it's the right way to do things. And I do like that suspension does allow them to be a little bit more proactive, because for those of us who remember the ancient days, we used to only get banned and restricted announcements like 4 times a year. So if a problem showed up and it wasn't near banning time, we just had to grit our teeth and deal with it for months and months. So them actively trying to curate the formats a little bit better and go, this card's on the watch list. We're not saying you can never use it again, but we're also not going to let you play with it right now because we need to see what the environment looks like with it removed. And I like the fact that Arena also allows them to get a far more accurate look at play rates and styles, because you can literally go over the data of every game and every deck that everybody is playing. So it's cool that they're able to do that. That is one nice upside to Arena. Ultimately, I think the suspension is probably a wise idea for now, and I feel like Brainstorm, if I had to guess, I feel like it's going to end up getting banned. If not now, in the future. It's a pretty potent card in regular Magic, and by regular Magic I mean paper Magic, but when you move into Arena, there are far fewer awesome cards because there's far fewer cards on Arena, which moves Brainstorm's power level up quite a bit. So ultimately, I expect at some point to see Brainstorm banned, and I do feel for the people who just want to play Pauper. When they ban cards like Brainstorm was printed as a common, which means you can use it in Pauper. It's a good card for Pauper, and let's be real, a lot of commons in Magic the Gathering are completely garbage. They're completely garbage, and so a good card that's a common getting banned is a blow to Pauper players who are playing on Arena. So my heart goes out to you. My condolences. At least it's just suspended for now, but you may as well get used to it not being around. I don't expect you to have access to it. Anyhow, those are the thoughts of this man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Big thank you to all my patrons for supporting my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.